Trump's war chief Pete Hegseth is facing mounting pressure as fierce criticism over his leadership raises a question that could have major consequences. Will he be fired? One senator has gone so far as to call Hegseth completely incompetent, demanding that the Pentagon chief be removed immediately as questions over his leadership continue to grow. Hegseth is now in the hot seat as a senator publicly blasts him over growing Navy crisis and demands answers about the conditions facing American sailors. Calls for Hegseth to go are gaining momentum, with critics arguing that sailors are being forced to pay the price for what they describe as failures at the Pentagon. The USS Abraham Lincoln has reportedly spent more than 250 days at sea, while claims that basic supplies are running short are raising fresh concerns about the strain being placed on its crew. As damaging claims surrounding the carrier continue to emerge, is Hegseth now scrambling to contain the fallout and protect his reputation? The Pentagon chief is pushing back against the allegations, insisting that reports about crew burnout have been misrepresented as pressure builds over the Navy's condition. And with tensions involving Iran remaining high, how long can Trump project military strength abroad if sailors within his own forces are reportedly being pushed to such an extreme that some are contemplating death? U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer has called for War Secretary Pete Hegseth to be fired immediately, arguing that his continued leadership is no longer acceptable and demanding that President Trump take action without delay. Schumer said Pete Hegseth was completely incompetent when he was nominated, warning at the time that his lack of qualifications and judgment could create serious problems for the U.S. military. The senator now says U.S. sailors are paying the price in what he described as a horrific and unfathomable way, pointing to what he sees as deeply troubling consequences under Hegseth's leadership. Chuck Schumer said, and I quote, "When Pete Hegseth was nominated, everyone knew he was completely incompetent. Now our brave sailors are paying the price in a horrific and unfathomable way. Pete Hegseth must be fired immediately." Unquote. Schumer's demand comes amid a growing dispute over conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, with concerns being raised about the prolonged deployment and the well-being of the sailors serving on the aircraft carrier. America's USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier has remained at sea for more than 250 days, placing significant strain on the sailors and raising questions about whether the vessel has adequate time and resources to maintain crew welfare. And it is not only Schumer calling for answers, as another senator has also demanded explanations from Pete Hegseth and the acting U.S. Navy Secretary over the reported conditions aboard the carrier. Richard Blumenthal cited shortages of basic supplies, concerns over contaminated water, and ongoing plumbing problems, saying these issues had raised serious questions about the conditions faced by sailors during the lengthy deployment. The American senator also raised concerns about deteriorating mental health among sailors, along with questions surrounding deck safety and whether the carrier's crew has been provided with a sufficiently safe environment. But Pete Hegseth has rejected reports that conditions aboard the carrier were poor, pushing back against the allegations and disputing the characterization of life aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Hegseth also said the U.S. Navy can maintain its blockade of Iranian ports indefinitely, arguing that America can preserve the pressure campaign by rotating ships in and out of the region. Hegseth said, and I quote, "We make sure every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas in those austere conditions with fewer port calls, it's incredible. Indefinitely, the United States Navy can maintain a blockade like that because we'll rotate ships in and out, as we have, and will continue to." Unquote. Notably, the USS Lincoln concern surfaced as the United States is already facing pressure on its wider weapons stockpile after months of operations against Iran. However, U.S. officials, including Hegseth, have dismissed reports of depleted supplies, maintaining that American forces still have the resources needed to sustain the blockade. Interestingly, Washington is preparing to send the USS George Washington to the Middle East, according to the Wall Street Journal. The George Washington is set to replace USS Abraham Lincoln in what officials describe as a previously scheduled rotation, rather than an emergency withdrawal over the reported crew conditions. A U.S. official said the carrier rotation had been planned before concerns over Lincoln's conditions emerged, stressing that the relief operation was already part of normal fleet planning. The change came as Lincoln's prolonged deployment put crew strain under the spotlight, after lawmakers and military families raised concerns over shortages, sanitation, mental health, and limited access to port. A violent clash has reportedly erupted aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, with Iranian media claiming that 7 U.S. Navy personnel were killed in the alleged incident. The claim comes from Iranian media, which alleged that the sailors and other personnel were killed during a deadly brawl aboard the American aircraft carrier. Several others were reportedly wounded in the confrontation, according to Iran's Tasnim news agency, which cited an unnamed military source. Tasnim reported that the alleged clash involved U.S. Navy personnel, but the details have not been independently verified. The claim has not been confirmed by the U.S. Navy or U.S. Central Command, leaving key details surrounding the alleged incident unclear. The reported confrontation comes as tensions have been rising aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln following its prolonged deployment and growing concerns over conditions facing its crew. The alleged clash reportedly occurred after CENTCOM advisor boarded the carrier to address complaints raised by sailors and other crew members. According to the report, the CENTCOM official was reportedly booed by members of the crew, with water bottles allegedly thrown during the confrontation. The situation reportedly escalated further, with the confrontation allegedly turning into a physical fight involving knives and other bladed weapons. The reported incident comes after the USS Abraham Lincoln's prolonged deployment, with the carrier having left San Diego on November 21 before being redirected toward the West Asia region. The prolonged deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln has reportedly pushed some sailors to the breaking point after months at sea. Multiple sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln reportedly tried to jump overboard as the carrier's deployment continued. The aircraft carrier's crew has spent 250 consecutive days near Iran without returning to land, intensifying concerns over the strain. Reports describe the deployment as a record for a U.S. aircraft carrier in modern times, highlighting its extraordinary length. The Lincoln left San Diego on November 21 before being redirected toward West Asia as tensions with Iran escalated. Its mission, which is now stretched into a 9th month, was originally expected to end in May but was later extended. The prolonged deployment has raised serious questions about the mental strain facing more than 5,000 sailors and Marines aboard the carrier. Around 200 relatives raised concerns during a San Diego town hall with U.S. Navy officials over the prolonged deployment. Families said the extended mission had severely affected sailors' mental health and placed enormous pressure on those serving at sea. One spouse reportedly told officials that her husband had texted her saying he hoped he would not wake up the following day. Another family member said her husband attempted to go overboard after learning that his already lengthy deployment had been extended. A different sailor's wife reportedly said her husband intervened to stop a fellow crew member from going overboard. Lawmakers have separately highlighted complaints about difficult living conditions aboard the carrier as the deployment continues. Reported problems include mold, broken toilets, laundry disruptions, and a lack of hot water affecting sailors aboard the ship. Congressman Mike Levin also cited complaints about food quality and shortages of basic toiletries during the prolonged deployment. Congressman Jason Crow said the strain on sailors and their families was continuing to build with every additional week at sea. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth previously dismissed complaints about food, water, and mold as fake news, drawing further criticism from families. The latest reports have renewed scrutiny of conditions aboard the carrier and the wider impact of its exceptionally long deployment.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.